For my 300th video, I'm going to tell you all a little bit about something that happened to me when I was about 12 years old. It was my own incarnation of National Lampoon's Vacation. So we're going to go back in time. My own version of National Lampoon's Vacation happened on July 13th, 1992. There you see my childhood home, right next to Lake Michigan there. And we took a vacation. Let me zoom out all the way down I-43 to this place right here, Six Flags, Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. And now, the park was a lot different in the map today than it was, back then. But my parents had wanted to go for a while, as something, to do for a family vacation and get down and see Chicago. And so they had come up with the idea of doing Great America, just as a way to, as a treat for me. So I hadn't really thought too much about the idea of roller coasters, but you gotta remember, for me as a 12-year-old, my vestibular system, my semicircular canals here in the ears weren't exactly up to snuff when it came to dealing with any kind of motion. And basically what happened with me was, anytime my feet got off the ground, or if I lost any kind of sense of orientation as to where I was, and well, obviously the easiest way to do that was to get me off of solid ground somehow. If I was off solid ground, my vestibular system went crazy and I was instant meltdown, guaranteed. Screaming, crying. The worst meltdowns for me were when that kind of thing happened. And so what became of our trip to Great America? Basically, so we kind of pull in here. The parking lot's very empty, but this was a Monday. It was fairly warm. The place was completely crowded. And I think literally within a half an hour of getting into the place, I was on sensory overload. And one of the things that happened to me when I get sensory overload is that if it goes on for any prolonged period of time, I just get horrible throbbing migraine. And so probably within the first hour of getting there, we left at like 9 in the morning, got there at about noon. And I think within the first hour, my head was just absolutely screaming crazy. And so I remember we walked around, and the first roller coaster that I went on, my dad wanted to do rides like Batman. He wanted to do the Batman ride. This ride was brand new when we were down there in 1992, and the line, I don't know where the entrance is to it. I think it might have been, it looks like a maintenance shed. Gotta replace that roof, it's all rusty. But like the line to get into it was like, all the way out there. It was like, there were signs that said that the wait was 2 hours. And so I wasn't going to do that. And so the first roller coaster I ended up getting on was Rolling Thunder. And I don't know where that was in the park because they took that out. It was only in there for a couple of years. But Rolling Thunder, I did not want to do. My dad was egging me on to do roller coasters, and I did not want to do roller coasters. And so finally we came to an agreement that we would not do roller coasters that had loop-de-loops because of the very reason that I mentioned earlier. And so the first ride that I actually went on was Rolling Thunder. So yeah, that's probably about as good a picture as I'm going to give you of it there. But that's Rolling Thunder. It was basically it was a bobsled roller coaster. And you went up the cart and you came down, and I remember the very first corner that we took, I felt like I was going to die because I simply was not able to handle. I was simply not able to handle it, and I just wanted to die. And so when I got off, the first thing I wanted to say to my dad was, Dad, I want to go home. I want to go home. But I could not do that at the time because my dad had really wanted to do this, and so I did my best to put on a brave face and bear it out. And so the second roller coaster that we went on was Willard's Wizard. And by today's standards, that roller coaster is pretty tame, I would think. But even the Wizard was a lot for me to handle. I did not like the experience at all. And keep in mind, I'm in sensory overload, head throbbing. I was the most miserable kid in that park that afternoon. And ultimately, there was like a couple other places that we went on for rides. No, that wasn't there. There was like some go-kart track. I don't think it was that. No, it was not those go-karts. I didn't want to do... They were like, I'd call them like tethered go-karts. You could only go on them for, you couldn't even go like so fast. It was really weird. And you couldn't steer either. They like steered themselves, but... And we also took a train around the course too. But I think about the time that we got done, it was like maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and I had just had it. And so, as again, this was part of a larger vacation to, because we were going to go, let me get the map oriented here correctly, but we were going to go to Chicago, Chi-Town, and kind of do some sightseeing around there. But what wound up happening was that as soon as we got done with the theme park, we went across the street here, and we had booked a hotel. And I think it might have been the Hamptons Inn that we stayed at. The front of it looks pretty familiar. I was having the worst migraine ever. I felt terrible, sensory overload, everything that comes with it. And pretty much on cue, I got into the hotel room, and as soon as the door shut, I sat down at the table, and then my body was like, okay, don't have to hold it in no more. And I projectile vomited all over the table that I had sat down at, the little coffee table that they had, just projectile vomited all over the thing. I mean, I was that sick. And of course my dad was all furious at me for doing that. We had to get room service to come clean it up because there wasn't enough toilet paper to clean up the table, the mess that I left on the table. And so my parents went and they decided to go out and get something to eat. I don't know where they went, but I pretty much laid down in bed, and I don't think I've ever crashed harder before in my entire life than I crashed when I hit that bed. It was the best feeling in the world to just lie down. I pulled the sheets completely over and just completely blocked out all sights and sounds, and I just was out completely like a light, like instantaneously. And I think that's the only time in my life that that's ever happened. I've been so overloaded that I literally got knocked out from the overload. But the next day, we were supposed to go down to Chicago. Now this is where the vacation part comes in, because everything was compounded up. Because my parents got home, or they got back to the hotel room. I had been sleeping for like 2 hours, and I started to recover. I finally had myself some dinner, and then I remember we watched Tom Skillen on WGN, and they were showing a storm system moving in. And so the next morning, when we woke up, it was just pouring like you wouldn't believe. And it was supposed to rain all day, and what was going on was my parents were like, well, we don't want to be driving, in the middle of downtown Chicago, during a heavy thunderstorm. So, considering everything that happened the day before, we pretty much decided to call it a trip, and we headed back north, and we drove in the rain from Gurnee all the way up to just before Sheboygan. And then we got off and we went to the Memorial Mall, and we went to Sears, and then we came back up the interstate, And we got home to my home, 48 hours later, and the only thing I got out of that trip were 2 Looney Tunes posters that I picked up at the gift shop at the amusement park. And that's my own little tale of a fun National Lampoons vacation style. Hope you like this video. Hope you can relate to it in some way. Please like, comment, and subscribe.